views expressed on this program are those of the hosts, guests, and callers, and are not necessarily those of this station, its management, or other advertisers. You're listening to Transformation Talk Radio.
The rug was pulled out from underneath her. She didn't feel confident. She didn't know if she could make it. Yet she rose like the phoenix, leading herself and her family into a new beginning. And you can too. Are you ready? The Kornelia Stephanie Show Lady Boss knows what women want: to be free to speak their voice, live in financial freedom, and build businesses that radiate wealth, leaving legacies we can be proud of. Join Kornelia, Dana, and Chris the first and fourth Friday every month as they raise the roof to inspire confidence in all women.
Are you in? Welcome to the Kornelia Stephanie Show. I'm Kornelia Stephanie, and we are second show in featuring and debuting the Lady Boss Show. I'm super excited about today's topic because we're talking about cancer. Breast cancer can be a portal to your true power if you let it be a message of love and a call to consciousness, says my new co-host, Dana Theriault. It's a true call of the wild because cancer is unpredictable and more about your life than the lump. Beyond intervention, surgery, or otherwise, cancer is an invitation to take charge and lead in treatment and transformation of your life. Today's show is to talk about Dana's life, before, then, and after a date with the doc on Valentine's Day that will never be the same again. Here is hope to what happened to her never happens to you or your loved ones, because it doesn't have to. Dana says compliance is not prevention. Welcome to the show, Dana Theriault.
Thank you.
Yes, it's wonderful to have you. And we were talking before we started live on the show today, is that it's really the sign of true leadership when we are faced with technology issues and all kinds of issues that try to prevent us from really showing up and shining our light and standing in our leadership and sharing our stories and sharing our wisdom. And that's what happened to you just before we got on the show, wasn't it?
It certainly did. And I am not tech savvy, so I was really recruiting resources to make this happen.
Yes, and here you are, and you look beautiful. And I just want to tell the audience a little bit about your background. So, more than in remission, Dana is focused on remembering her mission post-breast cancer. And what was that mission? To empower women and growing girls in leadership. Dana, a single mother, is in divorce proceedings, is determined to leave a legacy of love to her 8-year-old daughter and the next league of ladies. Having worked in human resources and people development, Dana has had to learn to dig deep to access resources in her own leadership development. She continues to navigate the trifecta of cancer, healing, court litigation, and career transition. In the words of her professor of coaching from the SWAT Institute, that says Dana has the gifts of experience, of wisdom that cannot be taught. She was formerly motivated by fear and is now motivated by desire and committed to moving in the direction of her dreams. She is so excited now to be mentoring other women. With degrees in business and psychology, Dana is also a certified human behavioral consultant. She faithfully remains herself, and she says, "I'm not afraid of storms, for I am learning how to sail my own ship." Welcome. My goodness, if that isn't a stand for women everywhere, Dana.
It sure is. And with all the mishappenings today, I kept telling myself, this can't go wrong if my stand is strong. I just had that mantra. With everything that just kept popping up, I just thought, I can handle this. I can handle this. I've got this. So it's really changed the convo in my mind. I'm really changing how I talk to myself. So it's a practice and a process. I really am learning every day and relearning.
Yeah, and that's beautiful. Now, what did you say? What did you say your mantra was?
Oh, I have many. One of them that I pulled out today was, I can't go wrong if my stand is strong. So whatever glitch may happen, and I am low to no tech, whatever may happen, I've got the phone handy. I'll handle, I'll deal. So at least if my message comes out, if I'm able to show up and stand strong in my leadership, it can't go wrong. It won't be perfect, but perfect is boring. Normal is boring. What is normal?
Because, hey, we're sexy leading ladies, right?
This is true.
We are sexy leading ladies, and that's how we roll, and that's how we show up. Exactly authentic to our true self.
It's the only way. And, I saw on the beach this week, someone was wearing a t-shirt that said, strong is the new sexy. And I love that. I have the book for my daughter, Strong is the New Pretty. So it's the early messages that matter so much too. So we can really always reference something. Books are breath for me, so I love to read.
Yes, that's beautiful. And so today what ended up happening is your internet where you live was giving you challenges. And here at a time when you're coming on to share your message with the world, to talk about this topic, cancer, that we're going to be talking about here today. But not only that, you're coming on as a leading edge entrepreneur, co-hosting this show together with me, and you're going to be on the last Friday of every month, or it's actually the fourth Friday of every month. So ladies, mark your calendar, because Dana has so much wisdom to share, and we're going to evolve as this show evolves, and we're going to talk about all things sexy. And so it's going to be awesome what we're going to come up with. But right now, I want to find out, and I know that a lot of people that are watching this, I know you have an amazing community of friends and people that have supported you, that are listening to you today. Talk about that time when all of a sudden you found out, what? Cancer? Tell us about, what do you mean by that? What happened?
I can't make this stuff up. I mean, right now I'm in the party room of my condo suite because I had a technical failure, but I have a spectacular view of the CN Tower in Toronto. I live at a very central location, and a historical fire was happening in Toronto at the time on that day. And I was evacuated from my home. So I was at Starbucks on the laptop because of the fire. It was Valentine's Day, and I'm working on the laptop at Starbucks, and I get the call from the hospital saying it's time to come meet the oncology surgeon. So I literally cannot make this up. It was just like, it came in threes on Valentine's Day of 2017. Yeah, it was wild. Talk about wildfire. It was wild. And
on Valentine's Day in 2017?
2017. There was a big lead up to this. It was a process, but and then that was the call. So I got the call to get the date with the doctor on Valentine's Day, but I knew before I was going in to get it in person, because it was very interesting. The lady that did the procedure, the biopsy, she looked at me in this is her day job. She knows what she's doing, and I'll never forget. She looked at me and she said, I'm not going to say good luck. I'm going to say have courage. So I was in there with unofficial notice because we had to wait for the lab results to come back, but I knew. So I knew, but I didn't know. So it was just the delivery. It was coming in from different angles.
Yeah.
But that's Valentine's Day, 2017.
That's crazy. Now, so what happened prior to Valentine's Day is, did you feel the lump?
I did. It was palpable and it was painful, which is really important to know that it doesn't have to be painful. And my first experience was with the lump exactly 20 years earlier. Rewind 20 years, and I had that first experience. But this time in November of that time, 2016, I didn't waste any time because of my previous experience. So I phoned and I made an appointment same day with the doc. I went in end of day, and right away she did her job. She was my GP and she referred out.
Oh, where did you go, Dana? Where did you go?
Went for a mammogram, and because I've been told that I have dense fibrous breasts, that I had to go back for a second mammogram. So that's 2 mammograms, what they call a target mammogram, if the first one is not clear in the imaging. So this has been happening to me invariably for 20 years because I have a history of it. So I would keep going back. And so in November, they said nothing showed up on the imaging. So I did a follow-up, fast forward 3 months later in February. And when I went in that time, it was a different story. Then it was confirmed.
And so what was confirmed exactly? What was, when you did go in and see the doctor that day on Valentine's Day, right? So, you know, the fire was happening outside, and what did happen? You went in and you got the diagnosis, and what was?
I did go in after, and I got the news. They said, unfortunately, we see some cell activity that indicates cancer, and that's how I got the news. So happy Valentine's Day. It was actually a week later, but I got the call on Valentine's Day, but it was all confirmed the week later. And then the party really got started, because then in the machine, there are processes and tests, and they don't know for sure. And at first it was proposed that I may have a lumpectomy, and then further testing revealed that that was not an option. And in the end, I went from there's nothing that shows up clear on the imaging in November. And then in February, the lady said, I'll never forget, with her thick accent, and she said, it's full of disease. The breast is coming off, just like that. So it was, it was a wild ride. Yeah.
Wow, that's what the lady said. And she wasn't the doctor?
Well, she was at that point, she was the clinician doing the exam, because of course I had to repeat the processes. So they didn't know at first, and they are reluctant to say too much, rightfully so. So there was a dance, there was a back and forth, and there were different opinions. They're all on the same team. In Canada, it's very different here. They each take turns quarterbacking. So there were different stories, but yeah, one of them, they were saying, well, breast conservation may be an option. Initially, they were hopeful. The surgeon said hopeful, but then the test that came back again said it's not an option. It's not an option. It's just better to just wipe it out, go to ground zero, because what would have remained would have just been a dilapidated mess anyway. And it would have been just a horrid nightmare for reconstructive purposes.
Wow. And so that must have been quite a shock. I mean, it doesn't matter, even though, you know, you said you've been dealing with this all your life, but then to get to diagnosis and then to hear, okay, the breast is full of disease, now it has to come off. That's just like, you know, I just can't imagine what that would feel like. And I know that there's so many women that, you know, are diagnosed with breast cancer. I don't know what the status, but I know that it's the second leading cause of death in women today in the U.S. alone. So I'm just so grateful to you, Dana, for being courageous and bringing this topic up and talking about it. And ladies, for those of you that want to call into the show to talk to Dana, call at 1-800-930-2819, and you can talk to us right here. And then if you don't want to call in today and you want to call in next time, which is going to be next month, the 4th Friday in June, where you can call and you can speak to Dana about, you know, any of this, about self-diagnosis, because we're going to educate. This is about really empowering you so that you know what to do and how to deal with things, and resources, right? And then the other thing I want to encourage you all to do is, if you're watching this video on YouTube, underneath, comment there and talk to us there, because Dana is able to go and look at the messages that are posted and typed on YouTube, and then she's able to respond to you and talk to you there. Because again, as you can see, her mission is empowering women, and you're going to hear so much more. But we're going to take a quick break on the Kornelia Stephanie Show. We'll be right back.
Are you an entrepreneur who's struggling to be seen? Do you know deep in your gut that if you could just be seen and get your message out, that you'd easily reach your tribe? How wonderful would it be if a fairy godmother came along, waved her magic wand, and suddenly you were more than visible, you were dazzling? Would you sign up for that? Hi, I'm Deborah Lupien, spiritual teacher and international best-selling author of Akasha Unleashed, The Missing Manual to You. I'm here with the wonderful news that such a person actually exists. Her name is Kornelia Stephanie, and she's gifted at helping entrepreneurs become dazzling. I've watched her work her magic over and over to turn invisible entrepreneurs into dazzling stars who easily attract their ideal clients and have fun doing it. Not long ago, I was the recipient of her gift. As a guest on her show, Living Heaven on Earth, not only did we have fun, but Kornelia helped me get my message out to a wider audience, which resulted in a very nice spike of traffic to my website and more subscribers to my list. Did I mention it was incredibly easy? Kornelia's running a veritable media empire of uplifting programs. They cover a broad range of topics and have a large appreciative audience. That's a winning combination, folks. Guess what? Those shows need guests and hosts. Imagine, after guesting on a few shows, moving up to hosting your own popular show. That is absolutely possible for you. So now you have a decision to make. Are you going to keep struggling on your own, or are you going to sign up for some Kornelia Stephanie dazzling visibility magic? Email radio@korneliastephanie.com today.
Welcome back, everyone. You're listening to the Kornelia Stephanie Show, Lady Boss. I'm with my new co-host, Dana Theriault, and we're talking about breast cancer. And during the break, Dana she clarified something for me from the first segment when we were talking about diagnosis. And Dana, why don't you tell the audience what you told me during the break?
Certainly. So I wanted to clarify and be really clear that I don't have a history of breast cancer. I was diagnosed at age 44, but when we rewind 20 years, at age 24, I had a benign lump in my left breast. So that was surgically removed and it came back benign. So because of that, I was under careful, close watch and faithful to the mammograms. Hence the comment that I was making that compliance is not prevention. So I did regular, faithful screening for 20 years with at least one, sometimes two mammograms a year, but faithful with compliance with mammography every year for 20 years. That started at age 24. And it's really important for women to know that with young developing breasts that are immature, it really is not, it's not clear on the imaging. I don't want to give a false information, but what I can say is that mammography reads the imaging much better with mature breasts. That I can tell you. Early on, it's very difficult.
It's interesting because I've never heard it called mammography. It makes sense, mammograms, mammography. Obviously, you're so well educated with this topic because of what you've been through that the language and. But thank you for clarifying this because mammography helps. Say this again about the mature breast.
So it takes pictures. It takes an image of the breast tissue. And when it's nice to think that in our 20s that we're still young and still growing and developing. But in our 20s, we do not have what they call in the industry mature breasts. Mature breasts are qualified very often after 50. I believe, I don't want to say for sure, but they keep changing the age when they make it a requisite in the industry to do the mammography. And yeah, you become quickly cancer literate once you come into this community. So the breast tissue is just, it's not wholly developed. It's just, and when it's dense and fibrous, it's just, it all feels lumpy. It's very, very difficult to read. And we can do self-breast exams all we want in the shower. They used to tell me do it while putting the conditioner on. So we can go around in the shower, but I don't know what to look for. My fingers aren't trained. It's sensory that we can feel it, but we don't know what we're feeling unless we're trained.
So, and then the lump that you felt before this last time, before Valentine's Day 17, that lump was painful.
Yes, it was. It's very interesting. It was a very different experience. The lump that I felt this time, well, that's a whole other story. That's different. But I showed up at the doctor's office that day, and I had mastitis, and they said it was because it was on the breast, they called it mastitis, but if it would have been on the knee, it would have been dermatitis. But I hadn't breastfed for a long time, and I had breastfed for 2.5 years without incident. So this was really curious. How did this happen? So they put me on antibiotics, and then, after 10 days, the mastitis went away. That cleared up. So the redness was gone. And we didn't have any idea how it happened. They said potentially through yoga. The bra could have nicked something. We don't know. It's just a for instance. But once the mastitis was cleared and all gone, I said to the docs, great, what about the lump? And they said, nothing shows up. So they just said, fast forward 3 months, we'll see you in 3 months. And then it was a completely different story. 3 months later, I'll never forget the woman with her thick accent. It's full of disease. Take it off. You don't need it anymore. You've already breastfed for 2.5 years. Your job's done.
Wow.
A different tune, completely different tune.
So they missed it, or is it that they missed it, or that it just doesn't show?
You know what? I would love to think that I'm omniscient and all-knowing. I can't say for certain. I know that with the resources and tools at the time, that was available to them. I don't know. But what's interesting about mammography and getting a mammogram is that it's a snapshot in time. There are 365 days in a year. So on one day, it could present a certain way, but with hormonal changes, fluctuations, next week, it could be completely different. But that was, it was dramatic. The experience that I had that November. I mean, I was swollen. It was red. It was mastitis, but that's not the norm. That is not the norm. That was one signal. Maybe I was signaled to go that day because I woke up with it was very painful that morning. It was very, very painful, but I didn't know. I went to the doctor's office that day, and when I derobed, it's like, oh my God, I was on fire. But that's not typically an indicator necessarily. There are different indicators for everyone. So I wouldn't want to signal that that's something to look for. That was my experience.
It's just hard for me to believe, that you had mammograms once a year and sometimes even twice a year, and that this wasn't detected. And then all of a sudden you have a breast that's full of disease, and now the breast has to come off. The breast has to be taken off.
Right. And again, I'm being deliberate to be conservative. I was faithful annually, and I can be clear and honest and say that sometimes I had more than one mammogram a year. And this is what the doctors told me to do. So I did it. I was a good student. I take instruction well. I was a faithful, compliant patient. And I don't want to say I was overdiagnosed, but I can say I was screened for 20 years. And essentially, I was underdiagnosed.
So this whole time, the first time that you felt a lump, it was 20 years ago, right? You said,
yeah.
It was in your left breast.
Yes, it was left breast. Yeah.
And then the second time was in the right breast. And over the years, you've been doing the mammograms. You've been doing. Did you do self-examination? And did you have a process and a protocol that you followed, self-examination, or?
I didn't have a religious ritual, but initially in the early years, because it started so young, I was only 24 years old, I did do a self-examination, but really, I wasn't trained. I wasn't skillful. I had no idea what I was doing. And at the time, I would just do it in the shower, what they would say when I had the conditioner on, but I really had no idea what to look for. Honestly, it all felt lumpy. I didn't know. I just didn't know. But that's the whole thing. It's about knowing your body. Once we know what to look for, that's a different story. And just becoming familiar with it. Once it's normalized, then we can recognize something that's different. It's knowing the body first. So I think that's the big takeaway. We have to know our bodies. This is so we can recognize when something is different.
Yeah. I'm curious. Were you at a place in your life where you didn't know your body at that time? Or were you paying attention to the signals and signs that were going on in your body? I'm just curious.
Negative. I can be very clear. I'm just waking up to woman now. Yeah, no, I really was not dialed in. It was it was a lesson to take note and recognize that, okay, I've got to do something. So yeah, I would check it out, but I cannot say that I was intimately acquainted with my body and that I knew the happenings. I really didn't know. I'm 46 now and I'm still learning, and things change. We go through seasons and cycles in life, and yeah, so I'm learning. I'm a student.
Yeah, and the thing is now, like you just said, I'm just now waking up to woman. I'm waking up to listening to my body, nurturing myself, taking care of myself with that level of consciousness, because we're going to talk a lot about the beliefs and different things. We're going to, open that up a little bit more. But now you are really waking up and you see the places where before you might have gotten signals, but you weren't listening at that time, right? And
right.
It's different. It's different now. Now, were you alone that day when you found out the news? Were you with someone? Was someone with you? Were you alone?
No, I was with my beloved. I was with my primary other. Yeah, I'm forever grateful to Andrew. Andrew was by my side the entire time, and he missed so much work. So I will be forever indebted to Andrew. Yeah. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you, Andrew. It's wonderful that you had the support, because again, getting news like this, if we don't have somebody to talk to, if we don't have a resource, and if we don't have support, tell us about your other support system. Did you have family that was there for you, that supported you?
Yeah, I absolutely. And I'm very blessed. I come from a loving home. I have the best parents. Everything was great. It is a big lesson though, because it's an indication that how I do one thing is how I do all things. I'm pretty much a lone wolfer. So I really learned to change that. It's really, really important. I love Dr. Christiane Northrup, and she says that community is immunity. And this more than ever is so important. I was very deliberate because I'm a highly sensitive person. I'm very cautious about the company that I keep. And of course, the wagons are circling, and I live in Toronto with accessible resources, and they had the support groups downtown, and I chose not to partake. It wasn't my taste. I felt so overloaded already. I just couldn't go and sit in this talking circle among women, not knowing the outcome. I really had to protect my space, and I found some sacred space, and it was very important. I believe this is important for all women, particularly for someone like me that feels things very deeply. I really was selective on the company and community that I built. So I found a tribe. I found a nice tribe of like-hearted women. Very important, very important. So in Toronto, my women are global around the world. It's very important. It's like any support group. If you choose to go and be among women in a support group, find one that you like. It's really important. Otherwise, I think it's just, tears are cleansing, but we got to move forward.
Yeah. And the thing about, having a support group or anyone else that you tell this to.
Yes. Yeah.
It depends on where those people are at, because everything is going through their filter. And if they have doubts and fears, and they have the ability to affect you. And so that's part of the reason, being protective, mama bear, being protective over your space, making sure that you really use discernment in who is it that you're going to let into this sphere of this healing that you're undergoing right now, this life-changing, transforming time in your life. Because really, I'm sure that you were looking at not being here, losing your life, what all these things, all these thoughts would come up during a time when you're faced with something like that. But let's take a break, and when we come back, I want to find out what happened when you made the decision to have your breast removed.
Okay,
we'll be right back.
Hello, my name is Charlene Hess, and I want to share with you my wonderful experience of choosing to use Kornelia Stephanie as my life coach. My life is so different now from where it was when I began working with her in 2011. At that time, I was in a dysfunctional marriage. I had my own business. I was raising 2 children and completely dead inside. After working with Kornelia, I began to gain confidence. I began to learn and understand how to use my emotions in my life. I learned how to process the emotions that were stored in my body, the ones that I thought that I had already worked through in my 12 years of counseling prior to working with her. The process that she had taken me through of using my emotions to heal my life, to use my anger to find peace, was absolutely incredible. I have been working with her one-on-one for many years now, and even though I am in a place now where I am thriving in my life, I still refer to Kornelia as my coach, and I still work with her on an ongoing basis where we're always checking in and keeping me accountable in my growth. After working with her for many years, I decided to go through her wholeness certification coaching program, and it has absolutely been an amazing process. I now am a certified empowerment coach, and I got certified through her program, and I am taking clients and helping them to find the empowerment in their lives. One of the things that I love about Kornelia is that she taught me that I am the authority in my own life. And that was a really difficult experience to go through because it was really fighting against all of the dogma and programming that was so ingrained in my brain that all of the authority is outside of me. But as I began to understand and believe and adopt and know the truth that I am the authority in my life, is when everything in my life started to shift and change. I became responsible for my decisions. I became responsible for creating a life that I love. And now I'm here in this amazing, beautiful place, living a life of so much happiness and joy. And no matter what life throws at me, I have the tools to be able to approach everything from a place of empowerment. And now I have the ability to help other people do the same. So working with Kornelia has absolutely been the best decision that I've ever made in my life. It has taken me from a life of absolute misery and given me the tools to be able to have a life of absolute, complete joy. So I cannot recommend working with her enough. I hope that you decide to choose to have her as your coach. Go through her empowerment coaching program, go through her wholeness certification, and I guarantee you won't regret it.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Kornelia Stephanie Show, and I'm with my new co-host, Dana Theriault, and we're talking about breast cancer and now what? And the process that Dana went through in her diagnosis and then also having her breast removed. During the break, we were talking about how important it is to have the support group. And there was a point that you wanted to make about the support group, Dana. Why don't you do that now?
I think it's really important, like I said, about alignment. I found a tribe that I really resonate with. So I did have a mastectomy, and it's a process. And after the mastectomy, there was a critical juncture that I had to make some decisions and some choices. And I just didn't know what to do because so much of it is sensory overload. There's just so much information overload. And at the hospitals, all the paperwork, it's all about informed consent. Well, many times we are signing paperwork that we're informed on the services, the treatment that they are offering, but we are not wholly aware of our buffet of options. So I really just want to make it clear that there's a difference between informed consent and empowered choice. That's a really discerning distinction. So what I did 5 weeks post-op, I hopped on a plane and went down to a team of ladies that I really align with. I went to Georgia, and that's where I met my beloved Dr. Veronique Desaulniers. She's actually originally Canadian that lives in the States now. So she is founder of breastcancerconquer.com. And I just have, I'm here because of her.
Breastcancerconquer.com?
Yes, breastcancerconquer.com. Yeah.
Okay.
And she really, she walks the talk because she's been through the cancer adventure, because it doesn't have to be, I mean, of course you go into the wild. It's a ride, it's a serious adventure, but there are gifts that come out of it too. And she's walked this path a couple of times. And if I may, this is a good time to insert. When I hear people say they lost their battle with cancer, sometimes the strongest people, it's not always, I've seen some women that are the walking billboards of health, and they've had recurrences. So you just never know. So yes, I went down to my team. I found that I could say home. I'm with a gang of ladies that I really feel connected with. And yeah, it was the team at breastcancerconquer.com in the States.
Yeah. And that really assisted you in your own healing, because you have the right support group, you have the right team. Now your family, it's interesting to find out that you didn't tell your family for about 3 months. Did I hear you say that correctly?
Yes, you did. That is correct. And the only reason I told them was because I had to. I was 44 with a 6-year-old daughter, and I was going through, talk about going through the fire. It was Dante's Inferno. I'm in the heat here because I'm going through a divorce and court litigation. And I've got team legal, team medical, and I had a lot going on. And I just felt like I have the best loving family home on the East Coast. I'm from a sweet city called Bathurst on the East Coast of Canada. And they had been there so much for me going through this divorce. And I just didn't want to put them through that. So I'm in Toronto. I've got a great circle of friends. I'm really blessed. When you don't have family around, your friends become your family. So yeah, I was really blessed, but I was getting pressure from the hospital. They really wanted me to tell my parents and tell my daughter. And this is really important too, because I brought my mother, because I was diagnosed in February, and I flew my mother in for Mother's Day. And I just, so I waited as long as I could until I couldn't tell them anymore. And just upon reflection, it's just like, gee, that's how I live my life, handled, done, just take care of it. And really, I was more stressed about telling them than going through it. Once I told them, everything was fine. So it was the counseling, the mental health at the hospital that was really giving me some heat to tell my family and tell my daughter. And the important thing I want to say with children, my daughter was 6 at the time, and they have no frame of reference. It is only the meaning that we attach to it, that they attach to it, that they can come up with something concretely. So if we say the C word and they don't know what that really means, so she was cool. She had family coming to visit, and she had a lot of play dates, and it was, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I just want to say that formerly I operated in fear, and going through this experience, I really learned to do things differently. And if she would have been sensing my fear, that wouldn't have been good for her. She's at the tender age developmentally of 6. So I think she'll get it when she's older looking back. But in the interim, there can be really wonderful gifts that come from this. Well, she's going to have great memories. We're spinning the positive here. I'm not saying it's all Candyland, but it doesn't have to be a spirit of suffering. No. It doesn't have to be. We don't live in the suffering.
It goes along with your intention. Well, first, a couple things I want to say. First of all, is your intention to leave a legacy and to empower women. You're already walking your talk. You're walking your talk by being vulnerable and by asking for help and by changing the game, because you already had said that your normal MO was to handle it yourself and do it by yourself and do this. And you got this. And the burden that women have had to deal with for thousands and thousands of years of really being able to handle things on their own and just suck it up and get on with it. But the part of you that was imbalanced, from my perspective, is receiving help, receiving support, receiving love, and, making yourself vulnerable. We talked earlier about vulnerability being the new strength. That is the new way, is making ourselves vulnerable. And for you to model this to your daughter, she's probably the one that has the wisdom to know that, Mom, you're going to be absolutely great. You're going to be fine, because she sees what it's really like when we have to deal with real life. She sees what it's like to to deal with any storm that comes along. And like you said, family was coming in, and she's seeing how you're handling it, and you're showing up. I think that actually is a much greater example than hiding it, which is what we've done for hundreds of years, is hiding whenever we've had something like this to deal with.
I read this quote before. The essence of the message was basically the girl in the corner that doesn't want anyone to see her cry, but then wonders why no one understands her. That was me. I just, buck up and just do it. And if we rewind 20 years, when I was living home, because I was living home for a bit after university, and when I had that lumpectomy, I didn't even tell my mother. Back then, there was no reason for it. And it's the convo I'm having in my own mind. I'm running game and racket on myself because my parents are wonderful. Oh my goodness, they have showed up so much. They've really been here a lot. I'm in Toronto 19 years this summer, and they're coming now all these years. Well, they have a grandchild now, but years they, wouldn't come here. I was on my own, doing my own thing. And it was me that just didn't want to
burden them.
I just felt, I didn't need to tell them. Yeah. And early on in the stages, this is important to know. Things change, trajectories change, lab results change. Initially, they really were gunning for breast conservation. They thought that was a viable option. And then down the road, and we're dealing with, I really was blessed. My surgeon was just brilliant, so kind, lovely man, most brilliant people. And the labs change. You never know. Cancer's wildfire, things change. Different tests reveal different things. So to go through that when you're in the wilderness, when I was in the wilderness, I didn't want to drag them through that process. So it was easier to say, done, but this is what it's going to be. So It was hard though, because we had a ski trip. We met, Andrew and I brought the kids, and we met my parents on a ski trip. And we hit it from the whole time March break. Yeah.
Yeah. And really, like you said, the way you do one thing is the way that you do all things. So now that you are really truly living your authentic self, I just want to give kudos to your parents. I just want to honor them and
Me too.
Tell them, I had a brief interchange with your mom on email. And I just want to say, to have parents like yours, you're so lucky that you are able to tell that story, because so many people out there have had to overcome, stories with their childhood and different things. So you're one of those people that's really, really blessed to have a family like that. And I want to give kudos to your mom and dad for raising a wonderful daughter like you. And I'm just so grateful that you're on here today and that we're talking about this. Now, I want to talk about genetics, and when we come back from break, and then we also want to give a plug to the new breast exam, what you brought for the audience today. We're going to be right back on the Kornelia Stephanie Show with Dana Theriault. We'll be right back.
My name's Bob Skeel. I'm 91 years old, and I want to take a few minutes now to share with you the important role, actually the critical role, Kornelia has played in my life. I say critical because I'm not sure I'd be alive at all to the many possibilities that make up our human experience at my age, if not for her. I could have easily become another dead man walking, only half conscious, stumbling through my remaining years, if it hadn't been for Kornelia. 6 years ago, I lost my wife to Alzheimer's. We'd been married for 61 years. I never thought I'd be a widower, but there I was, suddenly lost and alone, but with the good sense to set a working goal for myself. I was going to spend the rest of my life committed to unconditional love, whatever that meant and wherever that took me. A year or so later, Kornelia came along, helping me over several years to focus that unconditional love where it had never been focused before, on me. My whole life, my entire being had been focused on love of neighbor, and I had derived great satisfaction from that. But in the process, I had ignored the second part. I love your neighbor as yourself. Now it was time to direct that love inward. I didn't see that right away, but Kornelia did, and she drew me there. She drew me actually to God. Through many conversations over coffee and after numerous, sometimes tearful, agonizing discussions, Kornelia was able to lead me, kicking and screaming, to within where I needed to be. It was there finally that I was able to re-identify myself. It was in bringing unconditional love to myself that I now saw myself in a new light, a fully conscious, worthy human being, capable of healing, loving, and creating in my own right all these gifts of the evolutionary process. I'm a new man now, younger as I get older. I don't move as fast as I once did, of course, but my smile is quicker and I engage the heart and mind of others more readily. I would likely not be at such a wonderful stage in my life if not for Kornelia. I owe my new life to her, a wonderful friend and a constant source of inspiration. Thank you, Kornelia.
I want to thank everybody for listening and tuning into the Kornelia Stephanie Show today when we're talking about cancer, breast cancer. And this topic is, as you can see, we can just go on. And next month on Friday, June the 28th, we're going to come back and we're going to continue this conversation with Dana and find out more about her whole process over the last couple of years and how she is moving beyond it. And then also beliefs and mindset and various different things that she's had to overcome during these last few years. But the other thing I want to tell you all about right now is we have a free online summit coming up called Change Your Mind. And Dana is going to be one of our amazing speakers on the Change Your Mind Summit, which begins on June 11th through June the 16th. And we start at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Dana's going to be talking about how to be the leading lady in your life. And you're not going to want to miss this because we are going through one of the greatest changes in history, in our history on this planet, with so many things changing, from the way that we do business, from climate change to artificial intelligence. There's just so much happening that the way to embrace change really will serve us well in the coming days. And that's what this Change Your Mind Summit is all about. Dana, what is the day that you're going to be on doing your talk on the Change Your Mind Summit? What is that day?
I am all about 11. 11 keeps showing up for me. So I'm going to be on June 11th. There is a morning segment at 11 with the first person. I believe I'm the second lady up. I'm coming on at 1. So June 11th at 1 o'clock.
That's going to be so perfect. And love for everyone to subscribe and sign up for our event, changeyourmind.us. We're going to place the link below on the YouTube there. So this is a free online event. We have so many free gifts that we're offering. There's the Power of 11 speakers, dynamic speakers that are coming up that are giving you tools so that you can embrace the changes that we're in with ease and grace. So I'm really excited about that. Now, let's go back to your story. And one of the things we wanted to touch on is genetics. What role does genetics play in this?
Oh, thank you for raising that, Kornelia. It's just such a hot button for so many people because if I can change anything, it's the mindset of fear. We need not fear breast cancer. Of course, we can be protective and buffer ourselves, but if we learn that we have a predisposition for it, that it can be interpreted in a very negative way. And genes, Dr. Bruce Lipton tells us all the time, the biology of our beliefs, the expression. So I'm all about being fully expressed on a cellular level, on an interpersonal level. So at a renowned women's hospital here in Toronto, it was funny because I went to do all the standard tests and they said to me, I checked all the boxes, and the labs came back and revealed, and they said, you know what? We have really good news. I don't have to get any other body parts removed. There's nothing, there were no indications that I ought to have anything else taken care of while I was going under the knife. And they said that we have really good news. There's nothing here. The bad news is, she said, I'm sorry, I cannot tell you how you got breast cancer. So it is curious. I really would love to inspire influence for women to not be so dependent on tests. The tests are just a snapshot. And if one test reveals something, it's one window, as Dr. V would say, Dr. Véronique Desaulniers, which goes by Dr. V. And it's one window, it's a snapshot in time, because we really do have the power of influence to create the genetic expression. And genes can be wild and unruly forces of nature, but we can influence. So that was quite a takeaway, and one for the books for me, when I had these professionals that this is what they do. This is their day job all day long. Great news, no indications. Bad news, I'm so sorry. It's just, I wasn't expecting that. And very often it qualifies for history of cancer in the family if the women are postmenopausal. So on my mom's side, she had different sisters, but they were all postmenopausal. And they just think that that's just a natural occurrence. My dad's sister, Aunt Bonnie, she was under 50. She was 49 with her diagnosis, but they didn't consider that a history of breast cancer.
Wow. It's incredible. It speaks to a lot, again, of the power of our belief and our ability to override and really take charge of our innate, of our physical bodies, and really take the reins in our own healing. We're really rising up into a way to not be victims to our bodies, but to be thriving in our bodies. And that time is now with all the amazing ways that we're discovering how to organically heal and how to authentically express ourselves, and really looking at where our belief systems lie. I too have stories of, I canceled my appointment with cancer a while back in 2011. And I just made that decision. I canceled my appointment with cancer. I programmed my body. I canceled this. This is not something I'm subscribing to, nor do I want this experience. So that's just my belief system. And we create based on our beliefs. Dana, we only have less than 2 minutes left. What can we leave our audience with today that we're going to come back? Oh, 1 minute. 1 minute, Dana. It's yours.
Oh, I invite all women to be the MDs in their lives, the medical detectives. Get curious with compassionate curiosity. Be healthy, heal thyself, create the conditions in the body, treat the terrain, fully express ourselves with ease, because breast cancer is every woman's dis-ease. I think it's really a call to consciousness. And diagnosis is not prognosis.
Thank you. Thank you, Dana. Thank you, everyone, for listening and tuning in. We'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Kornelia. Thanks so much.
Hi, my name is Janet Hickox, and I want to tell you a little story about a story, and how my friend Kornelia Stephanie helped me through to the other end of that story. I have gone from the dark of a story I was telling myself that wasn't true to the light of optimism to see my way out of where I was and to where I want to go. And it all started with her scheduling a session for me to help me reclaim my money or my financial empowerment. Up until that point, I had been telling the story that my business was dying, that my business was not successful anymore. And the more I tried to figure out what was going on, the worse I felt about it. And when I had to get ready to do the session with Kornelia, she asked me to go look at the numbers and where I was through the year to date, and then also to come prepared with a number that I wanted to raise my income to. Well, I was quite comfortable with that part, right? I knew where I wanted to be. What I wasn't comfortable with doing is going and looking up those numbers. But I made myself do it, even though I tried to backpedal my way out of the session. She didn't know that, but I was going to try to get myself out of the session. And I looked up those numbers, and it was incredible that I discovered through that process that my business wasn't dying. In fact, I was doing 12% better than I had the year before. So I was shocked. I was shocked literally at the power of the story that I had been telling for months. But more than that, I was shocked that I had allowed myself to get there. And later in that day when I had my session with Kornelia, she pointed out some very obvious things like, how are you going to get where you want to go if you don't know where you want to go? How are you going to get there if you don't have the goals written out, if you don't have it set up so that you know where you are and where you're going to go? Totally makes sense, right? I had been in business, somebody else's business, as a sales manager for years, and I was a national sales manager. I had awards for sales management. I had business awards because of numbers. And yet when it came to doing my own business, I totally forgot all that I'd ever learned. So by the time Kornelia, working with me in just one session, got me to look deeper at the numbers and where did I want to go, and actually, claiming where I wanted to go, I was filled with a sense of optimism and hope like you can't believe. It was like everything shifted for me. And I am so looking forward to our continued sessions to see how far I can really push myself to get where I've only dreamed of being, where I've never taken the dream and actually brought it into concrete existence. So thank you, Kornelia, for the work that you're doing out there. I appreciate it, and I can't wait to see where I go from here.